Peace and blessings, and welcome to Healing from Loss to Love. It's all about love, the ZOLA Experience podcast. I am your host, Katora Bryant, and we have a very exciting show for you today. We are introducing you to the founder and the creator of the Therapy Fund Foundation. And I would like to introduce you to Mrs. Ashley McGritt Adair.
Adair. So we'll
Adair.
just maybe do that over. No, that's okay.
So, welcome, Ashley. I just want to do a little housekeeping before we get started with our conversation. Um, we are the ZOLA Experience is a 501(c)(3), and we will accept any and all donations to help us foster the work that we are doing and further the work that we are doing to uplift and heal the community. You can reach us at www.thezolaexperience.org, and you can find out all the exciting things that we are doing, um, our vision, our mission, as well as merchandise to support us. As you know, that I am an author of 3 books, and you can also find the books on the website. And there are 2 prices for the book. You can either get the book or you can get an autographed book. And yes, it does cost a little bit more, but what we use the funds for is to offer the books for free at certain events. And you can help us to do that. And it also supports individuals that would like to attend a ZOLA Experience weekend to help defray costs for that as well. So we thank you for your support, and we look forward to hearing from you very, very soon. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and humbled to be here with you today.
Thank you for coming and agreeing to come. I want the world to know about the wonderful work that you're doing. So if you could just spend a few minutes and just share your journey as to how you came about starting the Therapy Fund Foundation, as well as a little bit about yourself and what a wonderful human being that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to really understand the work of the Therapy Fund Foundation and why I created this organization in an effort to give back, especially for Black community members and other people from historically excluded communities, it's to understand and to know the love that I have for my grandmother, the person who raised me. So I was raised by my grandmother. Just growing up in the 90s, my mother was impacted by the crack cocaine epidemic of the 80s, and unfortunately, at 3 months old, had given me over to my grandmother. So I was with my grandmother from 3 months old up until the point that she actually left this world. And so it was very traumatic for me being a young child and experiencing grief and loss, and my grief that eventually turned into major depression. And so I had all these big feelings in such a little body, and I didn't understand what was happening. And I was sharing and I was trying to articulate what was going on, and I just kept being told, just pray, it's going to be okay. And I was living in a predominantly white environment at that time. And so when I ended up seeing the school counselor, who was a white woman, she didn't understand the role of grandmother in Black families. And I ended up spending a lot of my time during those sessions educating her on race relations in America and really having to also educate her on the impact of my grandmother. And I never really got the support that I needed. And I ended up spending most of my childhood in a depression. And I'm like, okay, this isn't the way. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I was really obsessed with Johnny Cochran. He was the first Black attorney I had ever seen. And I just remember watching the OJ trial and just being really enthralled with the way that he spoke and the court and the criminal justice system, which I'm still very much involved and a part of in the work that I do. And I also currently serve on the board of the NAACP as the health chair for the state area conference. And so that's all been part of my journey and just really studying psychology, just ultimately trying to heal myself and heal my own grief from my grandmother. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be other Black children, other Black people experiencing the things that I'm experiencing. And I knew that the support that I got wasn't it. And the response that I heard from the community, there just had to be a better way to get to wellness so that I didn't stay in that funk that I was in. So that was the path. And me being a child who had experienced this, I was really focused on children, youth, throughout most of my career. And I worked in different settings. I worked in almost every setting that you can think of, from child psychiatric facilities, prisons, hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, doing internships, paid work, and really just getting a feel for like what brings me joy and where I can do the most impactful work. I will say I did struggle with the youth. I wanted to take them all home. I worked at an unhoused shelter for youth, and that was pretty difficult for me. And so then I ended up transitioning and just focusing primarily on adults, and then I'll do like youth groups. So I don't see children in my own private practice anymore. Just that's something that um, it's not within my capacity, but I still love giving back to the kids and doing lots of different activities. And so fast forward, I start my private practice and they don't teach you in school about insurance or billing or business. And so I'm learning all of these things on my own about the business of private practice and what does that look like to be able to be paid for this. And insurance companies, they had a lot of difficult paperwork, just mundane processes. And oftentimes, clinicians like myself, they'll see clients for these sessions, they'll build the insurance, and then they'll deny the claims. And you've done all this work and you're not being compensated for it, or you're not being compensated for it at a number that is relative for your work. We all have, at a minimum, a master's degree in order to be able to provide clinical therapeutic support. And then even thinking about those who may have PhDs, PsyDs, and other higher levels of education that just weren't being compensated. So for example, you see a client for an hour, then you have to do the billing and the paperwork. That can take an hour or two. You're maybe spending 3 hours altogether, and then you're being reimbursed, what, $60, $60 to $80. You divide that by three, and that's your hourly rate, and that's just not sufficient. And what I noticed was clinicians were no longer taking insurance, so they're only doing private pay. And so what happens when you do private pay, your services are not accessible to those who are in need, those who may be eligible for Medicaid. I still to this day don't know any Black clinicians who take Medicaid. I know they're out there. I just personally haven't been able to find them. And so that means that people who are on Medicaid who are seeking a culturally responsive clinician, especially someone who looks like them, doesn't get the support that they need. Fast forward, I've always, offered pro bono services and just done things to serve my community. Then the pandemic hits. Everyone is grieving something, even if it was just losing the ability to go to your favorite gym or your favorite movie theater, or even if it was more so toward the loss of a person from the impacts of COVID. Pile that on with exacerbated racial stressors from the killing of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, countless other names, Charlene Lyles, the women who are involved, whose names are often not mentioned when we talk about gun violence and police brutality and all of that. And people were just stressed and feeling the impact of it. And they were looking for Black clinicians. They were looking for clinicians who were culturally responsive. And then when they found them, they couldn't afford them. And so I started the Therapy Fund Foundation in an effort to support clinicians who are working pro bono, meeting the need of the demand from COVID, exacerbated racial stressors, the state of the world, the political stance, all of these things that were happening and impacting us as a whole, so that clinicians could be paid adequately for the work that they were doing, and then so that community members could receive free therapy. Most people praise us for free therapy for community, but they forget that what we're doing is we're paying top dollar to the clinicians who are providing this service and also providing them their own wellness supports because I know so many clinicians who've stopped practicing, they've moved over to tech and just burnt out. And, if we're burning out, then who's left to provide the support? And so it was really in an effort to eliminate barriers to healing. And then most people, again, just focus on the free therapy, but our mission is to eliminate barriers to healing. And so all aspects of healing, from the education, we provide tuition support. We have a Preserving Black Families program because we want to really not prepare, but preserve that legacy of Black families, understanding the legacy in which Black families were separated during American chattel slavery, Jim Crow laws, welfare laws, all of these different things that removed the Black male from the home, mass incarceration, and what does that look like, and how do we thrive as a whole within the Black family unit? We also have our youth healing program, really focusing on the youth, training up youth ambassadors, getting them trained in mental health first aid, bringing in the cultural components, and really decolonizing therapeutic practices. We have community healing events. We host the only BIPOC-led behavioral health conference on the entire West Coast. Let's see. We have peer support as well because I understand that healing comes in many forms and you don't necessarily need to hold the degrees that I have to be able to sit with someone. And sometimes you can sit with them in a way that I cannot if I haven't lived through that experience. So we really value our peer support program, and I might be missing some things, but that's kind of the long, short story of how this started. It started with Dolores, who is my grandmother, and her passing, and my own grief and loss, and also the reasons in which she passed. She was 62 years old and she died way too young from a stroke. Um, and the implications of that. And the leading cause of strokes is stress. My grandmother was extremely stressed out. And when I look at how she managed her stress, she drank. And there were liquor stores on every corner in her community. And it was so pervasive and potent that they put these cheap liquors in our community and advertised them as a way to solve our problems. And so you could get this cheap malt liquor that was really killing you and making us aggressive. All of these things, many people are in prison right now due to the implications of the behaviors of how they responded to these liquors within our community. And one of her favorite alcohols of choice, which has been banned because of how detrimental it was on people and their health, Night Train, it's been removed from the shelves. Most people have never heard of it. Guns N' Roses did a song on it, but I think about that and how harmful it was that it's no longer able to be sold. And this was my grandmother's drink of choice and ultimately led to her demise. And I wonder if she had therapy, if she had other support, would she still be here today had she not have, had to go to those detrimental ways of healing and calming herself from the stress of life and being a Black woman in America.
Mhm. Yeah, our stories are somewhat parallel. Um, and I truly appreciate the love and the caring of being raised by a grandmother. Um, and, fortunately, she lived to be a very seasoned elder in the community. She was a beautician in the community in which she was raising us. And I was there until I was 7, until I came to the West Coast. And so I hear you around, I think that I really could have used a school a therapist that would help me to adjust. So I think that, when you were talking about the pandemic and the things that came with the pandemic, uh, just to look at that ticker tape every day was traumatic. And I don't know, I think it was a purposeful trauma that on every station that you would turn on TV, you would see this ticker tape, and when you first look at it, you would think, "Oh, is this the Dow Jones or something?" And no,
Mhm.
it's human lives. And how do you process that? And so it created that vicarious loss, and it created this anxiety around people about, what do you do with this? How do you talk about this? Which was really my motivation. I was divinely inspired during COVID to write the book, the ZOLA Experience, and come up with a model that was grassroots, and as you say, peer led. To a degree, it's versatile enough that it can be peer led or it can be professionally led and used. Um, but my primary motivation was really to make it as broadly used as possible, written in a language that any and everybody could understand. And it really came out of that same kind of energy of our, as people of color, our unresolved grief. And for people to not recognize our grief. We have been grieving for multiple generations, but no one has given us voice to what we have experienced. And if you fast forward, when you were talking about the situation that we were dealing with in the 80s, with the influx of drugs and alcohol into our communities, and nobody wanted to lend voice to that experience either, as to how did we get from point A to point B. Well, if you don't, you and I both know, if you don't deal with your loss, your traumas, and your griefs, it's got to be manifested somewhere. And unfortunately, the stress that your grandmother experienced, it manifested in her in a coping mechanism that perhaps wasn't the healthiest. Um, but that's just one of many unhealthy coping mechanisms. It could have been workaholism, which I think my
Yep.
grandmother was, she was running a beauty salon. So she was working 6 days a week. And for her, sometimes it was almost seven, because she would do people's hair just because she knew that it would increase their sense of self-esteem. And so, if somebody could either come to the shop or be in the house, and she was still doing the work. So I think that for us, doing the work is a natural space for us to be in. Um, and us coming together I think, was one of those things, when Nadir came to me and it was like, Mom, you really gotta, let's look more into this, the Therapy Fund Foundation, because the work that we do sometimes does trigger people, and we were giving them generic information as to where they could go for help. Uh,
Yeah.
and then when we began our relationship with the Therapy Fund Foundation, it truly was a godsend for us, as well as the people that we were impacting, because we had a specific space for them to go to that we knew that they would be well taken care of. And for me, that as a clinician of color, that was important. And you're absolutely right. Um, those of us that, because they send you through so many changes to even get on a Medicare platform, it was just really kind of disheartening. And you're right. We ended up, and I've done more pro bono work than I probably have done paid work at this point in my retirement, but it's all a good thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so tell us about a little bit about what's coming up that we're involved in, the a series that we both put together. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that and our partnership and just the way that our work has come together. It's really been a godsend, and I'm so excited for it to just be able to amplify your work, our work, and come together and heal communities. So what's coming up, and well, actually, what's already been happening is our Healing Black Family series, and I believe the next one is May 7th, which is all about honoring our mothers. And I'm excited for that workshop, the work that you and Nadir are doing and putting together this series. The first one was around Black Healing Month, and then it's going to be followed by messages from the family and really just thriving through the holidays once we get toward the end of the year. And I believe we're also going to be planning an in-person part of this as well, which I'm excited about. That should be hosted at NAM, the Northwest African American Museum in Seattle. And just more work to come. And as far as us as an organization, we have several different things in the works, especially during May for Mental Health Awareness Month, different kickoffs and stuff that we'll be putting out. And I encourage anyone listening to this to follow us if you're on social media or just subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss the updates because we do send out monthly events. And also, you could go to our website and always view our events calendar. And we put things that not only we are doing, but also things in the community as a whole so that you can chat. If I can speak correctly, so that you can tap in and see what's happening. And then in July, we host our annual behavioral health Reclaiming Wellness Conference, which happens during BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's the only BIPOC-led behavioral health conference dedicated toward improving mental health outcomes for communities of color. And our theme is decolonizing therapy. And we have Dr. Jennifer Mullen, the author and founder herself of Decolonizing Therapy. And she is an amazing woman. And I followed her work, and I'm just super excited for what she's going to bring to this conference, as well as some of our other workshop presenters. We have people like Ann Morrow, who's going to be presenting on decolonizing sex therapy, Houston Adair, who's going to be doing a workshop on supporting veterans who've transitioned into civilian life, and what does that look like, and how do we support their mental health and well-being. My uncle, he passed way too early, and he was a veteran. He had served in Vietnam. He was impacted by Agent Orange and had a lot of devastating implications and the trauma of being over there in Vietnam. And he was not provided with support really until like the last month of his life. And then he died. And I remember he was living with us because the VA was not supporting him. And my mom and other family members really advocated. And then finally, the VA got him his own place and he moved, and they were getting him support, but at that point it was too late, and he also used unhealthy coping mechanisms dealing with all of the things that he saw over there, and just being a Black man in America. And I often wonder, had the VA have supported him much sooner, would he still be alive today to share his story? And so that workshop is especially important to me because it's really going to help veterans who are transitioning. And what does it look like when you've been in this militant way of living for so long, and then you're transitioning out into everyday world, and you don't have necessarily maybe some of those supports that you had when you were in the military. And there's a number of other workshops as well that we're currently going through and picking out. And then as far as me, I am super excited. I'm working on my second book, which is addressing racial trauma in healthcare. And I'm talking about many of the things that we talked about. I literally have a chapter called Liquor Stores on Every Corner. And I'm talking about that and how do we address those harms that have impacted our community, from the crack epidemic, alcohol, as well as, the things in the way in which the American healthcare system has treated us and not seen us as a people, or haven't seen us as individuals who can experience pain. And what does that look like? And since putting it out openly and sharing that I'm writing a book about racial trauma in healthcare, I've had dozens of people reach out to me, strangers, people I don't know, sending me messages, sending me their stories. I've met with a few of them, and I'm going to be putting their stories in the book as well. And one that stood out really, I've dedicated an entire chapter to her, is Dr. Jacqueline. She's a psychologist, and her niece, Janelle, was an unfortunately, her life ended as a result of being a Black woman in America who was treated poorly. She went to the hospital seeking support, and she was turned away, much like my grandmother, who was turned away and sent home. And, then my grandmother experienced a stroke. And the same with Janelle, who I'm going to share her story and how her life ended. And she also wanted to be a therapist like her aunt. She was at USC just thriving. And I recently shared a story that her family put out on Instagram, just this beautiful memorial reel highlighting her journey. And I think about Janelle, I think about my grandmother and the countless other stories and all the DMs I can't even get to, of so many stories from people just wanting to share, like, me too, I've experienced this. And they're like, oh, you're writing about racial trauma in healthcare? You should talk to me. It's a whole book. And I'm just like, wow. I'm blown away at the magnitude of the medical apartheid that has happened and taken course on Black bodies in America, and ultimately the need and call for culturally responsive care, which is what I'm getting at in the book, and leaning on the need, for culturally responsive care and support and healing and wellness as we've gone through these traumatic events where we've never been sat down and had any collective healing. And so that's my goal and my aim with this book. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. It's almost done. And just, yeah, all of the things. My first book I self-published, and this one I'm using a publisher. So just, the differences between what it's like and the work that I did with self-publishing and now having a publisher where I can kind of like breathe. It's still work, but I do a lot of hard things, and my personality is like I can do it myself, and I'm like, nah, I'm
Not
not
this.
not doing it this time. Yeah.
I think I did it in the reverse. I had a publisher the first time because I had no clue what I was doing. I was like, I don't even know I was just being divinely inspired to move in that direction. The second book, The ZOLA Experience, A Journal Journey for Life, was a self-published book. And then I was in a compilation of writers in the third book called Second Chances, which is really a focus. All of us talked about a challenging experience in our life that we were able to overcome. And it's interesting because there are 23 writers, and
Mhm.
I would say of the 23 of us, at least over half of us have a nonprofit as a result of the experiences that we've had, um, or the direction in which we have been led. But it's a very inspirational book because it ranges from, my experience was through a divorce and through graduate school and raising kids. Okay, that was by myself, and it was an experience. And then there's some people that shared in there that they had near death experiences. So um, all of it is good. It's interesting that you're doing this book about the disparity,
Racial trauma in healthcare.
right, right, in healthcare. We'll talk offline because I'm doing a talk in a couple of months, focusing on the journey of African American seniors in navigating the healthcare system, and what that is like and has historically been like. Um, I feel like, for me, I'll probably just be getting started as I only have like maybe a half an hour to talk, but I experienced it firsthand with my sister and my friend. She recently had surgery, which was, and I went to help her, but the getting there and just getting to the point of finding a physician that would listen, they would just listen to her and say, these are my symptoms. And folks were just doing things that were, appropriating her illness and saying,
Mhm.
you knew you weren't going to get reimbursed for the next step. They got paid for the evaluation, but they knew that they were the wrong uh, person to be taking her to the next step. So it took us a minute to get there, like 4 or 5 months of pain and more degeneration. So yes, I can't wait to see the finished product. I know it's going to be wonderful. And when you get done, I want you to come back and tell us all about it, and um, share with us your journey. That'll be wonderful.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for the collaboration. We want to, if you could just give everybody your website address. We will be posting it at the end of the session, but if they can hear it, that'll be a great thing.
Absolutely. So my website is just my name, ashleymcgirt.com, and then the Therapy Fund Foundation is therapyfundfoundation.org, and there's a link on my website, ashleymcgirt.com, that will also take you directly to the Therapy Fund Foundation.
Okay, that is beautiful. And you will also see the flyer. You'll see the flyer on the ZOLA Experience website, as well as at the end of this podcast, as well as on the Therapy Fund Foundation website. So our series will continue May 7th. Will be a virtual experience from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So we hope that you will be joining us. The Healing Black Family series is May 7th, honoring our mothers. The next one will be August 27th, which will be messages from the family of origin. And we're going to specifically kind of target in on the messages that you received around parenting and education, because we'll be going into the school year, a new school year for most everybody at the end of August. And then November 19th, you'll see will be our Thriving Through the Holiday program. A lot of people struggle during the holiday season, but you can thrive during the holiday season as well. And part of our mission with the ZOLA experience is to help you to process your loss, your trauma, your grief, so that you can move forward with your life. So that we say that the 5 stages of grief by Kubler-Ross was really written for the individual that was transitioning. The 7 sessions of Zola is written for those of us who have survived the loss or the trauma. And we want to broaden your understanding of losses and how it impacts you. And it's not just with the person, it can be the loss of security, it can be the loss of being unhoused, it can be the loss of body image, it can be the loss of basically anything that impacts you, uh, in a challenge or positive thing. For example, somebody that is going from single status to being a married person. You'll never be single ever again. And there's a transition that happens during that period of time, or graduating from high school, going to college, or going into a job. But that's a life-changing event that we oftentimes don't lend voice to. And our mission is to lend voice to those experiences in your life and to form communities of caring where you can begin to have a safe space to share your thoughts and your feelings. So we want to thank you, Ashley, for being with us. Thank you to our audience. Please like and subscribe and on those buttons below, and we will truly, truly appreciate it. And as we say in Zola, healing from loss to love, it's all about love and peace and blessings.
Open